Good afternoon and welcome to the Senior Hour, which is sponsored by Comfort Keepers in Home Care and Providence Holy Cross Medical Center. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host,
Jen Sparks.
on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS. This is a show for, about, and by seniors, giving information to enhance one's quality of life. And our first guests this morning are Joshua Wentz from Mission Opera with his guest, Stephan Nieman. Welcome. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Barbara. Good to be here.
Yes.
Thanks
Thank you for having us.
Yes, so what's happening?
We are getting ready for our big season closer of the year. And
closer.
our closer. We have had a
Oh.
full season, a very busy year. We run our year like the academic year. So when school's out for the summer, guess what? Opera's out for the summer too.
Well, you have to have some time off sometime.
That's right, exactly. And so we are very, very excited to present another of the trilogy of the Star Kid productions. This one is closing our season from May 15th through the 24th, so right around the corner next weekend and the following weekend, and it's called Twisted, the Untold Story of a Royal Vizier. And Stephan is directing it.
A royal what?
Vizier. So it is the position that Jafar in the Aladdin story holds in the Disney film, canonically. So the Royal Vizier. Their job is to be assistant to the Sultan, helping the Sultan get through his daily days, all of his tasks. This play turns the story of Aladdin, the Disney movie that everybody knows and loves, makes it a little more rated R. And
A little more rated what?
rated R.
Oh.
It's
so
not a
little
children's show.
It's definitely
It's
not
a
a children's
parody.
show. But it flips it on its head, as Star Kid is known for doing. Star Kid Productions, what that started in a college, has parodied things like Harry Potter, has parodied video games like Trail to Oregon, zombie apocalypse stories. So this is the third Star Kid show I've directed, and Twisted takes the story of Aladdin and flips on its head. Jafar actually becomes our good guy, our main character, and it's really funny
interesting.
because it's based off of it uses the kind of the chronological story of Wicked, which is a retelling of Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Which is
If only there was somebody here who knew what Wicked was.
As we're looking at her Wizard of Oz
I know.
diary right now, it's wonderful.
so we
My drink,
Oh, nice.
Wicked as well.
Very cool.
the great thing about this story is it really does you feel like the movie is happening behind the scenes. So actors are coming into the Jafar story being like, oh yeah, a guy on an elephant just came through the town and had a parade without telling anyone and threw money to the masses. And obviously we know that from the Disney film because that's Prince Ali, yes it is he, Ali Ababa. There will be no Disney
Be careful,
songs.
only 5 notes,
yeah,
please.
Right? But it is a Disney parody. But there are characters like Jafar, Aladdin, and those are the only two names that they have borrowed from the movie. But there is, we're only allowed to call Princess. We also have a character named Sherazad. Now, Sherazad is a character from 1001 Nights, a fairy tale from a long time ago in the Islamic age. And so it tells a really fantastical story, and it's grounded and funny and comedic. And there are moments that'll make you go, oh, I really do care about this Jafar guy. And there are those moments that make you go, wow, did they really just say that in a theater at the Main?
So can you guys talk about the reason why there is you mentioned Wicked, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
What is the draw to getting like the behind the scenes? Because this is not Wicked's not the first thing to do that, obviously, with your show. So what's that draw for the audience?
So Twisted is not Star Kid's newest show. Star Kid wrote this show many, many years ago. And it was their first show out of college. It's the first show they took into the professional environment, into a little theater. And the draw, I think, it's people love stories. And people love taking a story and being like, well, I think there's more to this story. There's more to this character. There's more to this person. Jafar's not just the bad guy. And it's really cool because in this story of Twisted, like, we kind of revisit some of our other fairy tales. We'll meet Gaston, Ursula, Scar, Captain Hook.
All the villains.
All in this
all
show.
the villains come in a specific
Oh,
moment of
okay.
the show.
Okay.
So and Maleficent, of course. So there's kind of this idea that where our world is of this play, we're in the dark ages of Disney. It kind of takes place in the Magic Kingdom. That's where our play takes place, and we're in the Dark Ages. So the Dark Ages were a time period in Disney chronologically as well, before Bob Iger had taken power and had start bought Pixar and things like that. So it's in the time where 2D animation was suffering, and that is a really underlying theme throughout the show about like we're in the dark ages. Things aren't being solved. The Sultan only cares about money and himself, and it kind of flips that story. So the Sultan's not a good leader.
Nor was he in the Disney movie, if I recall.
Yeah, and funny enough, the Sultan is played. Family is a big part of Mission Opera. My father is actually being directed by me in the role of the Sultan, which is really great. I get to work with my father again, but he's just Paul Nieman in rehearsals. I have a lovely lead named Joshua Oscar who is really passionate about what they do, and brings a sense of subtlety Jafar that kind of expounds the production.
Okay.
And he leads the production in a very positive, uplifting manner.
Okay. Joshua, can you talk about your side of it and how you get to really kind of incorporate yourself in it?
Well, I just think it's great that we're able to start to do musicals. You know, opera has always traditionally been a hard sell in Santa Clarita since we've been around for almost 10 years now.
I think it's a hard sell to most people.
Yeah, exactly.
really
People
is.
have a stigma where they think they don't like opera, and then the ones that show up, they go, "Oh my God, this is not my great-grandmother's opera. This is
Right.
not the fat lady singing for
Right.
4 hours in German." And then we have slowly built an audience that way because people realize that it's not what they think it is, what the negative stereotypes are in the media and things like that. But what's really comforting is to be able to have a variety of different shows, different energies and moods and things like that. And Twisted is going to be our second musical, and Stephen actually directed our first musical last year, a Star Kids show called The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, which was hilarious. And that show sold out. Of course, the Maine's a small theater, so it's so we had to add a couple extra shows at the end, and now we've got 8 shows to do, so that it's a Friday
8
night.
of these?
8 of those. It starts on
Whoa.
Friday night, May 15th, and we have 2 shows on Saturday. It's a Saturday matinee and a Saturday evening, and we have a Sunday matinee. And then the crew and cast gets a couple days to rest, which they will absolutely need after their tech week and their busy rehearsal schedule, and then they'll do it all again on the weekend of the 23rd. So I'm just the producer of it, and I'm really excited because these young people that have such a great talent level and energy, they bring a whole new vibe to what we're doing. And it's nice to have, with our season, we have traditional operas like Tosca, and then we have American operas that are a little bit more like musical theater, like a Floyd we just produced and Stephen and I co-directed. And then we have this kind of absurd, amazing, funny musical that really pulls on a lot of strings. People love musicals, right? Wicked, hello,
Sure.
no one
Yeah.
mourns the Twisted. And, so we have the musical folks and all these kids that are coming out of the Heart District in some of the best theater and drama programs in the entire state of California right here in our beloved Santa Clarita Valley. And so this is for them, It's for the people that love Disney that spend who knows how much money on those season tickets and drive down to Orange County every other weekend.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Disney. People grew up on Disney, through the generations. Didn't matter if you grew up in the 40s or the 2000s, but Disney has been such an institution for so many decades in our country. And it's for people that love parodies. And we were just talking about collectibles before the segment, and people that collect things. They love these funny things that make fun of other things, right? We're in that era where we parody a lot of things. So there's something for everybody, basically, and it's just such a funny, lighthearted, laughable show. It sounds like it would be for children because it is, loosely based on the Disney. But they do use a little colorful language, right, and some innuendo. So we recommend, he says rated R. I say, in today's day and age, maybe 13.
13 and up?
Yeah,
Okay.
probably high school kids would,
Don't let the
enjoy it.
Disney lead you astray
That's right.
too badly. So, Barbara, this cartoon that it's based on, the cartoon Aladdin, it's a full-length movie, And that came out in the early 90s, I think.
Yes, yeah.
90, 91.
Long
Time ago. So you were obviously not a child for that movie. But what movies did you grow up with that were Disney? I'm assuming maybe Cinderella would have been your wheelhouse.
Probably.
Cinderella and Snow White.
Snow White.
Yeah. They could easily do a twist on those two princesses, the behind the scenes.
Oh, I'm sure.
The evil stepsisters, maybe they have a backstory that we're missing out on.
And I think it's a very interesting mechanic of flipping a Disney story because everybody knows them. And there was a time, I think, like Netflix and Disney Plus, especially when Disney Plus like became hugely popular. They were doing that for every movie. I mean, Maleficent had her own movie, and like they did the one with Emma Stone. She was the Cruella, but like the flipped, like, oh, we're gonna find out how they became evil.
Maybe she's not so bad after all.
Right? Yeah, that kind of feeling. Well, I think like this show is smartly so put together that it doesn't fall into this trap that I think a lot of those movies or those TV shows tend to do, where they still. It ends with they're wicked and they're going to be evil. And watch the other movie because you need to know how they're the evil villain. This one really does give Jafar the ending he deserves in this version of the story.
The ending he deserves. I like that. I like that little twist.
Interesting. Let's find out a little bit about each of you. Joshua, how did you get involved?
Well,
in this type of occupation.
Yeah, I spent over 10 years as a professional opera singer, traveling around the United States and Europe and South America. And
I bet that was fun.
It was amazing. It's nice to be able to see the world and to perform for the world. And I love languages and cultures, so that was great. And when I moved to Santa Clarita in 2016, I took a job as a professor of music at Los Angeles Mission College in Sylmar. And when I started teaching, I realized that there was a lot of students that had not had the opportunity of having musical opportunities like band, choir, orchestra, ensembles, and things like that. So there was sort of a deficiency going into the college. And I really wanted to teach students about performing arts and theater and musicals and opera. And I started, the reason that Mission Opera is called Mission Opera is because it was loosely affiliated with Mission College in the first days. And it was going to be something that I built curricularly through our district and our academic programming. And I just was hitting some obstacles, and it was, it became relatively quick. I noticed that it wasn't going to happen in the college. So I thought, why don't we expand this to the community? And Santa Clarita doesn't have an opera company, and I live up here, and I call Santa Clarita home and spend a lot of time, in organizations in our valley. So I had already had a nice design and had structured it to be called Mission Opera. So I said, it doesn't need to be called Opera Santa Clarita or whatever.
No,
so,
Mission Opera.
Yeah, so I thought Mission Opera works, and so we launched it, and we've... that was in about 2018, so I think we're about 8 years into this crazy game now.
Oh, well now, how did you, is your family in music?
No, I grew up in close to the Ohio-West Virginia border in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. So I grew up
close to North Carolina.
Close to North Carolina. We were picking bluegrass on the front porch, And so when I came back from college and I was singing opera, my family looked at me like I had 3 heads, We had to get the DNA test from the mailman to make sure I belonged to.
Oh, that's funny. Well, so how did you get involved, Steve?
In 2020, I was. I know that year's a bit like everyone remembers that year. So that year I was directing an opera called The Gondoliers, and it got shut down. And I was like, okay. It was with this little opera company in North Hollywood, and in 2021, we came back. We were like, hey, we're gonna do the show. I was like, cool. I was directing another show at the time, but I was so like, I was like I really wanted to just get back out there. I've been directing shows for a long time. I was doing a bunch of Zoom plays over that time period.
But how did you get involved? Was your family in this type of occupation?
So my dad's an actor. My dad's been an actor for all my life. My dad does film, television, theater, you name it. I grew up in singing and dancing, especially in Hebrew school. We used to do these things called Purim plays, which were, we take a Broadway musical and we'd butcher the heck out of it, and we'd say it's the story of Purim. Like we took one year we did Damn Yankees, and like I was Pee Wee because they couldn't call me Smokey because I was 7 years old, and so there was a lot of how I got involved in theater started at that young age. And then in high school, I really started to develop my love of it and my craft. I met Josh Wentz here, who's been my partner in crime in like theater arts and like understanding kind of how to build a artistic business, directing The Gondoliers in 2021. And then I left the country. I left, I said goodbye to Josh. I said goodbye to a lot of people. And I moved to the UK.
That's where I went from.
I got my master's in fine arts and theater directing from East 15 Acting School, which is definitely one of the highlights of my young adult life. And then I moved back. And when I moved back, Josh found out I was back, and all of a sudden Josh went, hey, come on board to Mission Opera. I helped direct Cold Sassy Tree, and the rest is history.
Nice.
But yeah.
And you can hear when Barbara speaks sometimes still that UK accent is still present.
It is. It's still present. And I'd been over here since I was 10 and a half years old. I came over in 1947.
Wow. I love that.
My dad was in the Royal Navy, and his ship was submarined, was torpedoed. Ooh. And they towed it into Charleston Harbor, South Carolina. And that's where they repaired it. And some of the visitors who came on were involved in different organizations, and they said, okay, well, once the war is over, we will sponsor you to bring your family to the United States.
Wow.
And of course, back then you had to have a sponsor. They had to have a job for you and a place for you to live and the whole thing, which they don't do anymore. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that's how we came to the United States. Yeah. And I can remember being horribly just laughed at because of my accent, Well,
really?
kids that are 10, 12, 14 years old, I mean, they're not very nice.
Kids are not kind.
True.
Yeah,
that's
they
very
aren't.
true.
And so that really, I think, kept me on the era of keeping my accent, not letting it go away.
Nice.
Well, you could have used it in your local theater. That would have been the perfect
That's
way
right.
to show those kids. You know what? I'll put this this British accent to work. All right. Well, before we wrap up here with you guys, let's just recap briefly about where I can get tickets to see Twisted. And I do want to specify once again, if you're listening, this is meant for, we'll say 13 and up. It's a little bit. I don't want to say risque,
so to speak.
Okay.
Just
All
a
right.
wee bit.
Just a
little
wee
bit.
bit.
So bring your
yes.
older kids and your adults to Twisted at the Main. Can you give us a little info on how we
please come.
find you guys?
Twisted at the Main on May 15th through 24th. Main Theater, Newhall, downtown Newhall. Tickets are available at the city at themain.org, which they use the platform Eventbrite. You can also find it on Google. I just typed in Twisted this morning, and that was one of the first things that came up on Eventbrite. So that was great. There's 8 chances to see it. We have Friday night and Saturday night shows. We have Saturday and Sunday matinee shows, and they will sell out. So our show last year sold out pretty quickly on the week of, so you want to get your tickets early. Also, if we do have tickets available, early bird pricing goes away the week of, so they will be a little bit more expensive at the door for the ones we have available. So not only are you going to get a discount, but you're going to make sure you get a seat to sit in if you come early.
Lovely. All right. Well, thank you, Joshua Wentz, Mission Opera, and Stephan Nieman. Break a leg.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with more Senior Hour. We are brought to you by Providence Holy Cross Medical Center and Comfort Keepers in-home care.
Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS. And our guest now is Adam Laraway from Focus Physical Therapy.
Hello
Good
there.
to see you again.
Good to see you as well. How
Are you
doing?
staying out of business, out of trouble?
I'm staying out of trouble, yeah.
Oh,
Hopefully I'm
that's
staying
no
in
fun.
business, though.
That's no fun. You
Right.
gotta get in some kind of trouble.
Right, yeah. Well, I definitely know how to do that for sure.
So what's on the docket today?
Well, I thought we'd talk about the newbie. It's been kind of interesting. That's kind of our flagship of what makes us different as a physical therapy clinic. But it's been interesting because I have a physical therapy student that is going to be with me for the next 14 weeks. So I'm having to talk a lot more than I normally do, I guess, during our visits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's been pretty cool. He's been extremely amazed. He's going to be with us for 14 weeks, and then he'll be sitting for the boards for exams. So, we try to kind of give back. So we just finished a student that we had for 9 weeks, and now we've got another student for 14 weeks. But it was pretty cool. We were teaching him how to use the newbie on Monday, and we had a patient who came in, locked something up over the weekend, could barely bend down to touch couldn't even get to their knees. And we put the newbie on them, and by the end of the session, we had them touching their toes. And so just watching it was kind of, sometimes I kind of take that stuff for granted, but it was kind of funny because, watching, my student kind of be in shock of this person just came in, they could barely bend over, and now they're leaving an hour later and they're touching their toes. This is pretty amazing stuff.
So just in one session.
Just in one session, yeah.
So
Yep.
it's nice. You and I were talking off the air before, and I've got, sometimes my back kind of gives me a little trouble, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I have to make sure that I plan for 6, 7, 8 weeks of sessions, but maybe that isn't the case for everybody.
Absolutely, and that's kind of what we were starting to talk about is that, sometimes it does take a while for things to kick in, and I will say that, the newbie is really cool because it taps into your nervous system. And so if it's something that's fairly acute, meaning it happened pretty recently, sometimes I think you can correct the nervous system really quickly. In this case, this person did something on Saturday night, locked up their back, couldn't move, came in on Monday, and by the end of the session, we had loosened it all up. Where somebody who maybe has had it for 6 months or something like that, the brain has now started to kind of try and protect a little bit more. And so even though we can still tap into the nervous system and improve things, there still may be some of those kind of protective mechanisms that are going on in the brain that are trying to still kind of protect and because the brain's job is to keep us safe.
That's true.
So, when it senses those threats, it's going to do different things. And pain is a good, kind of modulator, if you will, that says hey, I don't want to do that because it's going to hurt, and that's a good way for your brain to kind of correct some of the or inhibit you from doing certain activities because it doesn't feel like it's safe. So anyways, I was going to say that, sometimes if it's acute like that, you come in and we can do an evaluation, kind of figure out what's going on with you. We may only need a couple sessions, and then we can also give you stuff at home, to do on your own so that, if you are really busy and it's hard to get into therapy, we can give you those things to do that can carry out, the treatment and that type of stuff. But the newbie is definitely a game changer in kind of getting you rolling.
So can you explain the newbie to me like I'm a 5-year-old, please?
Absolutely, yeah. So the newbie is it's a direct current stimulation device, which, it's electricity. And so most people have heard of a TENS unit. Those were very popular back in the 80s and 90s. They're still popular. But that's alternating current. And what makes the newbie different is it's direct current. So what that really means is, and this may not be a 5-year-old explanation.
Let's go up to 10.
Yeah.
How's that?
Are you smarter than
You
a
may have
fifth
to
grader?
go to 15.
All right.
But so with an alternating current, the current is going back and forth, okay? And so it helps with kind of blocking pain receptors when we use it in therapy or at home. And it does give you some pain reduction. But it actually is a little bit of a stressor to the brain because the brain doesn't understand why is this current going back and forth, where the newbie is direct current and works more like the brain does. So, if you want to bend your arm, your brain sends a signal down through your nervous system to the muscle that says, okay, turn on that muscle and then bend your arm. And that's one direction, and that's how the newbie works. So we use the newbie a lot of different ways, but for somebody who's in pain, we can literally map the system with a sponge and an electrode and drag it on the skin. So say you had a pain in your bicep or in your back, we can map on the skin with that sponge, and when we get over where your brain is sending the signal that's causing the problem, the intensity goes up with that sensation because the brain is sending its own electrical impulse to that problem area. And then when we map over it with the newbie, we duplicate that signal because it works just like your brain does. And so the intensity goes up. So we know, oh, that's the spot with 100% accuracy. We can tell you, say, oh, that's where your brain is protecting. And so then we stick an electrode on there, we do that mapping process again, find a connection to that spot. And then once we found that, then based on what we do with our evaluation, then we take you through different movement patterns, whether it's a stretch or maybe a strengthening exercise or some type of movement pattern, so that we can then get the brain to shut off that protective mechanism. You know, it's kind of funny, you know, kind of going back to like lower back pain, you know, how many times I've heard a patient, you know, that they bent over, you know, to pick up a sock to put it in the hamper, or, you know, something that should be, you know, pretty
Easy
immune.
to, yes.
You know, yeah, you wouldn't think, like, I'm not like lifting 150 pounds. I went to pick up a sock. But what happened is maybe you pinched a joint, what's called a facet joint in your back, and then the brain said, whoa, this is not safe. This could cause damage. And so then all the muscles clamp down on that joint and immobilize it. And then you come in, so kind of going back to our example of this person that came in Saturday or Monday morning with the pain on Saturday, she didn't really do anything, but all of a sudden she went up, get up out of a chair, and everything locked up. And that was just her brain basically saying, this is not safe. You know, why our brain does that, this is all subconscious. This isn't something you're physically thinking about.
No.
But the brain said not safe, and so it locked everything up. You know, same thing, you know, another probably example that what people can relate to is sometimes you wake up after sleeping and you wake up with a stiff neck and you're like, why do I have a stiff neck? Like, you know, I didn't do anything. I was sleeping. And the same kind of thing can happen. You get into a position, you may not feel anything while you're sleeping, but if you do that for too long, the brain says, oh, this isn't safe. And so it's going to lock up that facet joint. And then for 4 or 5 days, you can't turn your head to the left. You know, it generally is self-limiting, meaning that eventually the brain is going to start to let you go through those motions, and you start to able to turn your head a little bit more every day until the pain finally dissipates, goes away. The brain basically said, hey, this is safe now. I can do that. I'm not going to damage anything. And your motion restores. So the same thing can happen. It can happen all over. It can happen in your knee. It can happen in your hip, in your back, everywhere.
So is the newbie good for once you have some kind of injury or issue, or can it be used for preventative?
It could be
especially
used for,
with senior citizens. You want to prevent any kind of injury, obviously.
You know, it's funny. You're hitting on I guess a thing I've thought about for a long period of time is that, you know, think about dentists. Everybody goes to the dentist twice a year, you know, for your cleaning, right? You're getting your teeth looked at and doing all that type of stuff. It's preventative, right? You're making sure that you're doing all the stuff that you're doing. And I really think that physical therapy should be like that, because I think it would be beneficial for people to come in maybe once a year or, you know, twice a year and just go through the evaluation. We look at how your motion is and that type of stuff, and we can catch some of those things that happen because you're sitting too much, you know, and so things are kind of starting to tighten up, you know, and be more preventative. Unfortunately, that's not the way our healthcare system works, but, you know, preventative would be really, really good because we can screen and we can see a lot of that stuff before it actually causes a problem. Because usually when you have pain, it's too late. Yeah, it's too late. The brain's already saying, hey, something's not right here.
Yeah, you can do like a diagnostic test type
Absolutely,
of thing.
absolutely. So with the newbie, I mean, I use the newbie on myself a couple times a week, and, you know, so, you know, I don't have a whole lot of aches and pains, which is pretty good. I'm 51 and doing all right. But, you know, occasionally I'll map myself and I can find some little spots. Again, going back to kind of having a student this week, I was teaching him how to use the newbie yesterday, and so I had him mapping me, and I don't have any knee pain or anything like that, but I found a spot in my lateral quad on my right side that was really reactive. So obviously,
really? Isn't that interesting?
So obviously the brain is protecting something there. So we went through some movement patterns and progressed and stuff like that, and it'd be interesting to map again and see if that spot is still there.
How interesting is that?
So even though I don't have any pain, my nervous system is obviously protecting in that one spot.
Yes, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I have a physical therapist come to the house.
Do you? Yeah. For home health.
Because I don't drive anymore, and Dr. Black recommended physical therapy. So
they're putting you through the paces.
She comes to the house, but I have to do it every day.
Yep.
you know. And some days I don't,
Yeah. Yep.
which makes it worse the next day when I do. But she really puts me through it,
Yeah.
you know. But it's good. It really is, because it's helping me.
Wonderful. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And since I can't drive, and you know, I have no choice.
Yep. But you
And
got to
so-
keep moving.
And Dr. Black says, no, we'll send her to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what she does. She comes once a week,
That's good.
every Tuesday.
There you go.
And boy, she puts me through it. I'm telling you. But I'm doing very well with it. I mean, it's things like standing with your eyes closed and not holding on to anything.
Yep.
Or then there's the one where you put your one foot in front of the other. And, that's not easy to do. And stand without holding on to anything.
Yeah.
That's very, very hard to do. And then I kick to the side and kick to the side and back and up on my toes. And she really puts me through it.
That's good.
That's really good.
It's good for me because it keeps me moving.
Yeah.
You know?
I seem to remember when you were in the clinic with us, the heel to toe standing one was your favorite.
Yes. Not anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah. I don't think it was
Not
back then
anymore.
either.
No, it's very hard to do.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to do.
Yep.
Standing with one foot in front of the other,
For sure.
not holding on to anything.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
And she'll tell me, she says, you know, just lightly tap on the sink if you need to.
Yep.
You know, to keep yourself steady. But that's the hardest one to do. The
Yep.
kicking sideways and up on your toes and kicking backwards. Those things are easy
Yeah, your
to do.
balance.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
Adam,
that's
can
my
you
problem.
talk a little bit about what Barbara's talking about? Obviously, you guys do way more
Balance.
than just the newbie.
Yeah.
You do plenty of other things
Absolutely.
with and for your patients. So can you talk a little bit about what else you guys offer there?
Especially ways to help you keep your balance. That's my biggest problem.
Yeah.
And I think with many seniors, it's their problem too.
For sure, absolutely. You know, and we've talked about this before, but you know, I always find it really interesting, and when you kind of break it down, you know, what causes balance, it totally makes sense why, as we get older, our balance gets worse.
Yes, it does.
And we're more likely to fall, that's the worst thing we want to have happen. And so, you know, with balance, we use 3 systems. We use our vision, our hearing, which is called our vestibular system, and then we use our proprioceptive input. So input through our hands and our feet mainly. But, you know, it's kind of funny because we always talk about, like, you know, when you get up in the night to go to the bathroom, you know, your balance is kind of off, and so you've got to use your
I've gotta-
dresser and all your
yes,
wall and all the
kinds
different
of
stuff.
things I have
Right.
put my hand on to help me get out of bed
And so
and get up.
So if you think about it from a physical therapy standpoint, it makes total sense because, you know, you probably have a night light, so there is some light in the room.
Yes.
But,
there
you know,
is.
obviously the light is very low, so that means your vision is going to be compromised because you're not in a brightly lit room, right?
That's right.
And then, you know, as you're going to stand up, you know, you have input through your feet, but until you grab onto that dresser or that wall,
Hold on to something.
you know, and
to
once
get
you do
in
that,
there.
then your brain has 4 points of input. And so that makes it so much easier because when your brain has those different points of reference, it knows what to do, how to kick on different muscles and how to help things with that balance. You know, part of the exercises you mentioned a few minutes ago with going, you know, heel to toe, you're decreasing that base of support, which is a challenge because, you know,
Oh.
if you've got your legs spread apart, you've got a wide base of support.
Yeah, you've got balance on both sides.
Right. And then she cued you to kind of touch your fingers down to give you that extra input. And it's amazing how just even one finger on the
It
counter.
is.
Yeah.
It is. It's a what?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's just because your brain is then getting that one more frame of reference or you know, input that says, oh, hey, this is where I'm at in space. And then the vestibular system is our hearing. And so as we get older, what happens? Our vision gets worse, our hearing gets worse,
Really?
and our joints get arthritic. So we got all 3 systems that are getting some type of compromise.
That's right. Well, as you get older, the body has a tendency to slow down.
For sure.
And sometimes fall apart slightly.
Right, yeah.
And that many times causes falls.
Right. But the
And
cool
then
thing is, go ahead.
That's when you really hurt yourself.
Exactly. That's the worst case scenario.
Oh,
We definitely don't want anybody
absolutely.
falling, for sure. But that's where it's really cool from a physical therapist standpoint is we can challenge all those systems and we can make them better. And so it's really, really interesting to. That's what we do in physical therapy. When we do our evaluation, we figure out which of those systems is compromised, maybe all three, but we can do different exercises and different things to do that. So, yeah, really, really cool stuff.
Yes. So, do we need to take a break?
We sure do.
Okay. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host
Jennifer Sparks.
on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host
Jennifer Sparks.
on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS. And we're speaking with Adam Laraway from Focus Physical Therapy, and we're talking about balance.
Yep. Yeah, so I thought we maybe would pick up kind of where we were at before the break, but so we were talking about there's kind of three systems, that you use: your vision, your hearing, which is your vestibular system, and then that proprioceptive input. And it's interesting because as we get older, those three systems definitely start to be compromised. But what's really cool about it is that you can do different exercises to challenge them and make them better. They can improve. Our brain has this ability to adapt and improve. You just have to give it the right challenges that force it to do what it needs to do. We talked about fear earlier in the show, or threat, that the brain doesn't want to let you fall, and so, when the brain detects that whoa, I caught my toe on that, throw rug and almost tripped, the brain says, whoa, that's scary. And so then it thinks okay, well, what do I need to do to not do that again? Because if I fall, I'm going to hit my head. I'm going to, I could hurt something. And so, in therapy, we do different exercises to kind of stimulate or try and get those systems to kind of pick up the slack, so to speak. So for the vestibular system, the hearing, we might have you walk back and forth in the room, but we have you turn your head as if you were, walking down the street talking to somebody, because when you're walking straight ahead, both ears are getting kind of 50-50 input, right? But if you go and say you're walking with your daughter and you go to turn your head to the left and you're still walking forward, well, now you're getting 80% into your right ear and you're only getting 20% into your left ear. The brain normally, when your vestibular system works really good, can adjust that, no problem. But when your system is having problems with that literally could make you fall to your side, because all of a sudden you're getting so much input on one side and none on the other. The brain doesn't know where you are in space, and that's kind of what happens with some of the different types of vertigo, is that your brain doesn't know how to calibrate that, and so all of a sudden people start veering off to one side.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I have a walker and I have two walking sticks.
Right.
And in the house, if I have to go to the restroom, I use that walker.
Right.
I won't dare use those sticks because they can be hit on a piece of furniture and down I go.
Yeah.
And that's the last
And that's
thing I
all it
wanna
takes,
do.
yeah.
So I take that walker and
Yeah.
go. And when the walker hits a piece of furniture, I'm still stable because I'm holding on.
Yeah.
Which I usually don't. It doesn't usually hit any furniture, but you never know.
You don't want to take that chance.
No, I don't want to take
Yeah.
that chance. And when I go out walking, I take my walking sticks and I take two of them.
Yep.
I don't understand how people can manage using just one,
Yeah.
because you're just holding up one side.
Right.
And what happens if your other side hits something and you go down?
Right. Well, there's a couple things there. So with two walking sticks, now you've got your legs plus both arms giving you input, so it feels more
Yes.
stable.
Oh, it's much more stable.
Right.
And the
Versus
kids say, especially my son, when we get out, he comes down and we'll go somewhere. Get your sticks, Mom. Get your sticks.
But if your balance is pretty good, you may only need that one extra point of reference with just one stick, and then you would be fine. But if
I
it doesn't
don't-
feel that way,
no.
yeah.
I don't feel comfortable with one. Mine are standing up and I'm holding them like this, and
Yeah.
and I've got stability.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because as you get older, believe me, your stability changes.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You'll get to where you need to go. It'll just take a few extra moments, but you'll be there in one piece so that you don't end up in the hospital or,
That's
having to have some sort of
exactly.
major
Exactly.
physical therapy issue. So
No,
the preventative is the main,
Absolutely.
the key word.
Yep.
It's not worth it not to use it.
For sure.
It really isn't.
For sure. And then,
So-
kind of going back to the vestibular system, I thought of a 5-year-old example of this. When we used to have these, like little birthday parties, and they, you stick your head on a bat and you spin around on it, and make yourself dizzy, and then they want you to run, over to tag the next person. What do? They go all right and left and all over the place because what did they do? They messed with their vestibular system, and it took, at least 30 seconds to get back to that person for it to get back to neutral.
Amazing.
But that's a perfect example
Yeah.
of that one system, you just made yourself dizzy and you're trying to run back to the other person. You can't do that. Well, when you're older and that system is compromised and you think, oh, I need to get to the bathroom really fast. Well, if you get up and all of a sudden that system isn't calibrated right and you're having to reach for the counters and the wall, that's where you run that risk. And so those systems have to work, and there's different
Well,
things that we can do to
it's-
challenge them.
It's interesting because one of the movements that I have to do is sit down and stand up in my chair. Sit down and stand up. Sit down and stand up. And that's really hard to do.
For sure.
It really is.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so we need some contact information
Absolutely,
for you.
absolutely. So
So-
we're located at 25050 Peachland Avenue, Suite 205. Our phone number is 661-255-4205, and our website is www.focusptscv.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I think it's time to leave
It
today,
is time,
isn't
yes.
it?
Thank you, Adam
Yes.
Laraway of Focus Physical Therapy. And you've been listening to the Senior Hour on your hometown station, 98.1 FM and AM 1220. We're sponsored by Comfort Keepers In-Home Care, Providence Holy Cross Medical Center. Now go out and enhance your quality of life.
Yes.